Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the conversation. A beautiful Wednesday morning. I'm coming live to you from beautiful Sarasota, Florida this morning. And I've got a great guest with us this morning. I'm so excited to have Jake. Say hi, William. Say good morning. And Jake Seaton, and we'll talk a little bit more, make an introduction to him in a minute. But while we're coming on, everybody start letting us know who's out there so that we know that we are indeed live, like the screen says. And we're going to do things a little differently today. Many of you have gave us feedback that you like this off the cuff. So we've titled it Off the Cuff this morning. And that's what it's going to be. This is not a session per se that's scripted or has any kind of connotation to a script. This is Bill Barker and Jake Seaton having a conversation. Hey, Al, good morning. And there we go. Everybody's rolling in now. That's great. And appreciate it. Hey, Robin, we're in your town. Scott, Jennifer, Bill, good morning. Good seeing you again. Lori, Robin. All right, Bill. I tell you, we're going to have a great time this morning. I'm glad. Hey, Jennifer, we're in your hotel. Good to see you here this morning. Jennifer runs the hotel we're in. We had a good conversation with her, and I'm glad you were able to join us. Jill, good morning. Good to see you. Virginia, so great to see you. And from Lake Mary, love it. I'm gonna say today, this is your opportunity. Here's how we want you to think about it. So Jake and I are sitting in a coffee shop in Miami. We're having a good time, or Sarasota, or Naples, wherever we are. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about how we think about leadership, and you're getting to listen into our conversation. And we hope you pull a chair up and ask a few questions yourself. So we're going to keep an eye on the chat, and if you do have questions, and
for the record, this is coffee, not alcohol.
Beer. I'm glad you clarified that, Jake. It does kind of look like a
it's
yeah. So here we go. I want to introduce my friend Jake Seaton, wonderful young man. He and I work together on some projects. He's the CEO and founder of Column. Column is a public benefit corporation. He just won a contest that gave him free space in beautiful Miami, Florida. So he's headquartered there, and he's coming live to us from Miami. And we're really glad to have you, Jake, and looking forward to it. You know, Column is a public benefit company. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. I think that just has such a great ring to it. But it's also an important business. It has to grow and prosper and do all those things. So, Jake, I'm going to ask you to take 1 minute to introduce yourself, but I'm going to give you a couple of kudos. Jake was recognized as one of Forbes 30 under 30, which got a lot of recognition, and also in our own industry, editor and publisher 25 under 35. So you're stacking up some nice recognition, Jake, but introduce yourself real quick.
Thanks. I'm Jake Seaton. I'm originally from Manhattan, Kansas. My family's run the local newspaper there for the past 5 generations, since about 1915, and we have about 10 other papers throughout the American Midwest, in Kansas and Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, Oklahoma, and Wyoming. I am a software engineer and an entrepreneur by training, which I studied in college in hopes of learning the skills to help kind of modernize the family business, and really fell in love with the future of public notice, which are these advertisements that the newspapers publish on behalf of governments and the legal sector and private individuals. And so saw an opportunity there to really help build the future of a key segment of the family business. And so founded Column, which has been working very hard at bringing that into reality.
Yeah. Well, you've been on quite a growth trajectory, and some congratulations on that. But what we're doing today is we're here to talk about leadership. We've got a lot of established leaders on the call, Jake. We've got some that are entering into their leadership profession, and they want to hear from people that have been doing it for a while. And one of the things that I hope comes away today, I'm on one end and Jake's on the other end, and together we've really found that there's a lot of compliments there, and I'm learning as much from Jake as I think he's learning from me, and frankly, if I was honest about it, I'm probably learning more. And it's been a fun run. But one of the things, Jake, I've noticed, as you've started building this company, first time I met Well, I'd met you before, but first time we really came together and met a couple of your colleagues, we were in Boston. You had maybe 5 people headed toward 10, and really enthusiastic and excited. You just had a full company meeting. Isn't it great when you have the entire company come together in beautiful Miami Beach? You had over 50 people there, right at 50 people. That's quite a growth, right? And so we talk a lot about talent density and the importance of talent. You've really been able to acquire a lot of great talent when others have really seemed to struggle to get people to come to work for them. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Why do you think that is, and how do you think about talent and acquisition and motivation and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so a few things I think are really driving our kind of talent acquisition and growth strategy there. The first is our mission, where we have a very big problem in the world, which is how do we notify the public? What is the future of this revenue category for the local journalism businesses that we really want to continue to be sustainable? And that's a problem. And the platform we built is a solution that I think really motivates people to come and work on this, where you've got folks that have started careers in high technology and want to use those skills to try to build the future of the news and information ecosystem, and have an opportunity to do that by helping build this company. And so the combination of that mission of building the technology to support the distribution of information and keep live is a really, really motivating and really powerful mission that folks want to work on. It is what initially attracted me to this problem and kept me awake late into the night and waking up early in the morning to start the company. And that kind of infatuation with the work that we're doing and the impact that it might have, I think, is something that people really care about. And the second is, at this point, with about 50 or so folks, we've built a very kind of talent dense team, and kept the bar incredibly high of folks joining the company. And so I tend to think that one of the best rewards for really talented people, outside of pure compensation, is like getting to work with other talented people. And so creating that kind of flywheel effect where people want to come work at Column because they see that other talented people that they know are working at Column, and having a culture that's kind of built around that has created, I think, kind of a flywheel effect that's enabled us to compete for folks leaving careers in high technology or high growth companies to come and do this.
Something that interested me is that talent seems to be finding you, right? It's not like you got this big recruitment, machine working out in the marketplace. But one of the things that you have done is really had a strong social presence. Your communications, Kevin King, who works with you, you may tell him about Kevin being, one of the best speakers or whatever, debaters, whatever he won the mega contest doing. Kevin's very talented, but you've done a really good job of getting your message out, and that has attracted talent. Talk about that a little bit. How did you think about that?
Well, so it really is. In the last few months, we've had a few folks at the company, especially our people operations lead, Melissa Tice, who's really taken ownership of building that kind of funnel and getting the message out and ensuring that when people are looking for jobs with social impact or civic technology or government technology or media technology, that if they're looking on job boards or LinkedIn, any of these places, that you might find an opportunity like joining a technology startup or a public benefit company, you would find Column and would at least surface that to folks that might be looking there. And I think that has really dramatically increased the reach of our message, as building kind of a content stream on LinkedIn. So I don't know if, for those of you that I'm connected with, I've made a couple of rather ambitious LinkedIn posts recently, our monthly growth rate, as well as some of the content that was produced from the Miami retreat. And so we have this phrase that we talk about at Column, which is this concept of building in public. The work that we are doing every day and the things that we are accomplishing are stuff that we should be able to share with the world, because the process of bringing a company into existence is incredibly complicated and stressful and difficult and inspiring. And I think the chance to be constantly with that and sharing it and getting engagement from the broader professional ecosystem with the work we're doing is like really valuable, both for getting feedback on what we're doing, as well as identifying people that may want to come do this with us. And so that's the other thing we try to think about, is how can we build in public in a way that helps people for whom this resonates find us and want to come do this with us.
Don't let me forget, I do want to talk about it in a minute, but I'll ask a good question I'm going to ask you. But I do want to come back to that. You talk about enthusiasm and all of the passion that's there in the early stages. We do want to talk about how are we going to maintain that, right? How do we keep that going over the longer term? We want to talk about consequences. We get bigger in leaders and what we say and what we talk, and how those words have bigger impact the larger you are, and you have to be thoughtful about that. But I'll ask a great question: how today's leaders should be equipped in this rapidly changing world. So, Jake, you know a little bit about what we've been talking about. We started out around leadership, what it meant, and then we talked about important leadership principles and how we apply those, and then we went through 5 series of how to manage through change to become a true change agent, right? Not let change happen to us. We actually drive change. So when you think about being equipped in this world of change that you're dealing with, and you're kind of at the tip of the spear leading a software company, how do you think about being prepared to compete in a world that's so rapidly evolving?
Yeah, it's entirely about the team and the people that you surround yourself with, because you can't do everything yourself. And we talk about this phrase of giving away your Legos, where it's hard to as a leader, like, delegate key responsibilities, especially things that you're good at or passionate about. But in order to grow, in order to be sustainable, in order to have an organization that can withstand the pressures of the market, you have to be able to do that effectively. And so just surrounding yourself with the most talented people possible that care about the work that you're doing, and bring their full selves to work every day is I think what matters really more than anything else. In terms of just equipping a company to succeed, we can talk all we want about business models and financing and market conditions and brand and communications and customer service, but at the end of the day, it's about the people and you treat your employees well and build a great culture, and orient that culture around creating a sustainable and growing business. Then that will be the result of that process. That's how I think about it, at least.
It's interesting. Let's talk just real briefly, not to over talk about this talent density thing, but for everybody out there, when we talk about talent density, we're not talking about a technique related to recruiting or a technique related to retention, some of the general management of human capital. But the concept of talent density is more about, it's not about size, it's about the density of that talent and what they can create collectively, right? The collective impact. So back to some of the things Jake was talking about earlier, talent breeds talent. People want to work with talented people. They're inspired and motivated by each other, but they also, I think, is part of where that horizon watching comes, Jake. So let's talk just real briefly. I know Leo was talking about some things the other day. We're all big readers. We're in the news. We consume news, but part of that understanding a changing world is to be comfortable in a changing world, right? And awareness and the ability to see around corners is some of the things we talked about. How do you keep an eye on the kind of the technology ecosystem to be ahead of the trends so that you're not reacting to them, you're actually influencing those trends going forward? How do you think about that?
Well, let me just talk a little bit about kind of what you said at the start of that, and call out the fact that one of the kind of cheat codes of Column is that many of the members of our team had worked together previously, building a different software company. And that was an experience that we had together professionally of working together to bring something like Column into the world. And that company was successful and continues to grow. And the founders of that company are still running it, and it's, I think, at about 150, 200 people now. But having had that experience before and knowing each other's capabilities and knowing what it was like to have that high talent density, high growth environment that we wanted to be able to create, again, solving another important mission at Column, I think was one of the ways that we were able to create the culture that we have. And so think about some members of our team less as human resources and more about a group of people that are kind of going through life and building careers together, and recognize that we are better as a team than we are all individually. And that's I think a really powerful thing to have as a central fixture of the culture. In terms of seeing around corners, I think that the thing I'd come back to is just curiosity. And I think we have this operating principle, and we can talk more about what I mean by that later, but we have this operating principle of never ceasing learning. And members of our team are constantly reading, constantly attending conferences, constantly consuming content like this that is produced by industry leaders and people that are kind of creating the future. And so I think we try to keep our ear to the ground in terms of where the world is going. And if you take Public Notice, for example, the previous company that many of us was a legislative analytics platform that would aggregate every bill and amendment and vote floor statement into one platform and help you visualize, understand trends. And we actually used that software to understand trends in public notice legislation and saw, a trend that indicated that something, needed to be done. And there was an opportunity for a company to really shape the future of that ecosystem. And so, kind of getting started with this project in the context of seeing something that was coming down the road, I think is an example of how we do that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. And it really, I think what you hit on there is really having people that are curious, right? They're not just doing a job. They are highly motivated to the outcomes of their work, right? That's what that public benefit component means, but also being able to be self-sustaining and self-funding and creating value and how you do that. But, staying competitive, because there's always going to be disruptions in the marketplace, particularly in the tech space. And so how do you lead that disruption in a positive way, particularly when you're trying to play in the space you are versus being, in the conversations we were talking about earlier, Jake, around change, we want to be the disruptor, not the disrupted, right? As part of some of the things we've been talking about. Well, let's go quickly. And for everyone out there, if you have questions for Jake, shoot them in chat. Let's make sure we get your questions answered as well. Let's talk about purpose a little bit. You just had your entire team together. And for everyone out there, I did sit in the first day, and I found it so motivational, inspiring to see all these wonderfully talented people come together with so much hope and optimism and thinking about the future. And so Jake's got some advantages because they're building something. So they don't have a lot of legacy to think about. They just have a possibility to think about. But what I was struck by is you don't have a lot of structure in that. It was really about people getting to know each other. You didn't have a lot of presentations. Kevin did his thing real quickly, but it was really around storytelling and allowing people within your team to tell their story. How do you connect? What is your purpose besides being public benefit and all that? But how do you bring that to the human level? Right? How do you think about purpose and what people mean to the organization? And why did you bring everybody together for 3 days just to get to know each other and not have a real big agenda? What's the thinking there?
Well, so for the majority of the time that this company has existed, we've been operating in the COVID-19 pandemic. And so made the decision very early on to build the company as remote first, instead of all being centralized in one city. We have people now on, I think, 4 or 5 continents and really have a global team of folks spread across the world that, given that our day-to-day is signing into Zoom calls and working asynchronously and very little of that, if you sign into a Zoom call, you assume that there's some purpose and agenda of that meeting that relative to just running into somebody in the hallway of your company headquarters. It's like it's harder to have that like serendipity within the culture of the company when it's all remote first. And so we've looked at the opportunity to gather in person and have retreats and have those be something that we really invest in as an opportunity to create that serendipity and to create that experience of working on building something together and being a group of people that all care about the same thing. And so we kind of made a rule for that first retreat where our theme was tell a better story, which is another one of our operating principles. But we made the rule that there was going to be basically no work talk, and we obviously talked plenty about the company, but there was no presentation with a bunch of slides given by the executive team. There was no like breakout sessions with like different products or customer segments. It was about being together and spending the time that you would otherwise get from an in-person experience, in a dedicated environment once per quarter. And so, as a leader in those moments, being able to reinforce, this is our mission. These are our operating principles. What is the job? And as we've grown from 5 or 10 people, where a bunch of my job was just kind of beating my head against the product and the early customer base until it matured into something that, resembled a business. It has become more about how do you articulate the mission and the principles by which this group of people operate, And that has been a change for me personally, where I am very good at those early days of writing the initial code, designing the initial products, hiring the initial people, raising the initial money to like get it started. But now that we're operating at some semblance of scale, the job changes. And I've learned the hard way that if I raise an eyebrow at the wrong moment, it creates like a week of work for somebody at the company. And so I have to be very careful about which direction my eyebrows go into particular.
Well, you know, we're running out of time here, but I wanna say, and everybody agrees with this, agree in chat, but I think we're gonna have to bring you back. I did want to talk more about culture because that's kind of what you're getting into. We did want to talk more about consequence as we do get bigger, like your eyebrow point and other things. We also want to talk about what are the lessons you anticipate that we're going to learn, the things that also what some of the things have been really fun, what have not. So we got a lot more to talk about. So I'm going to probably bring you back. We may run over for a second here for those that can stay. I do want to give a shout out to Emily Walsh, who was our host last night for dinner here in beautiful Sarasota, and Kristen Boothroyd, who was with her. And Kristen, we're going to send you this book, The Art of Possibility, because we talked a lot about that last night. And you've been on these sessions almost every day. You gave us a shout out testimonial. So this book is going to stay in Sarasota and head your way to your office. And Jake, I want to thank you for being here. Everybody else, please thank Jake. We are going to have to bring you back. And one of the things we're going to talk about culture, but real quick, from many of these people are working in mature businesses, and then we're going to sign off. Talk about what you thought about as you've realized your words do have consequence, and how has that affected the way you communicate and think as a CEO?
I think just the internalizing that, the consistent reinforcement of this is what we're trying to accomplish, this is the direction that we're going, this is what we need to prove, as the primary responsibility of the CEO and the leader has been, you know, relative to writing code or day-to-day of sales and business development or like product design or anything, has been the big shift. And that is my primary responsibility, is to be the steward of the mission and the vision and the values of the company, and be constantly reinforcing those to members of the team across all the different communications that I make to them, and kind of, you know, be constantly beating the drum of our growth and our mission and where we're going is what I try to think about.
Well, we're going to have to, we got a bunch of hardworking people who got real large responsibilities ahead of them. I hope everybody goes and has a great day, makes a great day out of it. Next week, we're going to have Andy Robinson. Some of you may remember Andy from before. He's going to talk about the VUCA concept, you know, which is really around, you know, uncertainty and ambiguity and other things in the market today. And you're going to find that to be very, very productive next week, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. Everybody, thank Jake for being here. Thank you all for joining us today again, and we'll do this another time. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to have 3 or 4 of you on with us, and thanks for those that have volunteered. And we're going to keep doing some of this off the cuff. I hope you enjoy it and answer your questions and make sure that we keep this real, but we get into the content that matters most to you. So, Jake, thanks for being here again. Everybody have a great week, and in the meantime, lead on.
Thanks, everyone.